the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are, the week starts here. Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk all the way to 10 o'clock. Stand by for 3 compelling hours of breaking news, challenging views and topical debate. Get on the show, get on the phone and call me on 03444 99 1000. Or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. That's 03444 499 1000. Let's talk. It's Monday, July the 7th. Here's what's coming up. As crybaby Rachel from Accounts prepares to break her solemn promise not to hit us with any more tax rises, and Labour gets ready to do what it always does, rinse the rich, the need for more and more money to pay for Britain's insane welfare system gets more pressing by the day, because the government is pretty much handing generous benefits to anyone who asks. Nowhere is this deranged handout culture more extreme than in the labyrinthine lunacy of the motability scheme, which last year took £600 million from the Work and Pensions Department, in other words, that's our money, and provided an astonishing, wait for it, 589,000 welfare claimants with brand new cars. 589,000 welfare claimants got brand new cars from the motability scheme. More than 32 of which went to people with anxiety and depression, 40 to people with tennis elbow, and my personal favourite, 20 of these cars went to those poor people suffering from the nightmare of constipation. I'm serious. All due sympathy to our bunged up fellow citizens, but does being constipated really warrant a free car? Courtesy of the government, courtesy of the British taxpayer. Motability boss Andrew Miller earns £750,000 a year. He is sitting on a £4 billion stockpile of gleaming new motors, and his government funding organisation has an annual turnover of £7 billion. This ongoing insanity is just part of why Starmer and Reeves are tanking the economy, so that they can carry on giving cash and cars to just about anyone who asks. How crazy is this? 03444 499 1000. Just remember that. 20 people last year got a new car because they were suffering from constipation, because they were constipated. I mean, really? Really? This is absolute derangement, isn't it? Absolute derangement. 03444 499 1000. Meanwhile, that smug old dinosaur, former failed Labour leader Lord Neil Kinnock, goes on to the telly and announces he's got the answer. Tax everyone worth £10 million or more, 2% of their wealth. This, he says, with the complacency of a socialist who has done very well out of the public purse, will raise £11 billion and be enormously popular. Except with the nation's wealthy wealth creators who, like the millionaires who are already leaving the UK at the rate of 1 every 45 minutes, will simply quit Britain and add to the already seriously damaging exodus. Can we go on like this? 03444 499 1000. Also tonight, as the King makes a speech on the 20th anniversary of the 7/7 bombing attacks, and there is a moving ceremony at St Paul's Cathedral. Have lessons been learned? Nearly 15 years after the Islamic terrorists brought horror to the capital, top cops were still warning us that the fastest growing terrorist threat was from the far right. No, it wasn't, and it still isn't. Why did the authorities pretend that Islamic extremists weren't the biggest threat? And do we still have a problem confronting the fact that it is Islamic extremists, it's Muslim terrorists who commit 75% of the terrorist atrocities in this country and indeed around the world? Why do we have a problem dealing with that? It's a fact. Never mind far-right terrorists. I'm not sure they even exist, not in this country. But why? Why? Only about 5 years ago, the police were saying the biggest threats from far-right terrorism. This is just delusional, isn't it? 03444991000. In other news, former Reform UK and now Independent MP Rupert Lowe joins me in an hour with his take on the escalating migrant crisis. A quiet weekend, but last week, up until Friday, 2,599 foreigners, basically 2,600 foreigners, crossed the channel illegally, and these latest invaders will cost British taxpayers a staggering £140 million over the next year alone. So last week's contingent of illegal migrants who crossed the channel unlawfully and broke into our country will cost you and me and everyone around this country over the next year £140 million. They cost 40,000 quid each. Why do we keep letting them in? It's just ridiculous. And still they come, and still the French police do next to nothing to stop either the migrants or the boats. Considering we've given France £800 million over the years to patrol their beaches to no avail, what should Starmer tell Macron when he arrives tomorrow for his state visit to the UK? 03444991000. Keep it clean, it's a family show. I'll also talk to rape gang victim Ellie Reynolds and ask her what she makes of the new police investigations that reveal the scourge of Muslim men of Pakistani heritage preying on vulnerable young white girls is still very much a current problem. 03444991000. Plus, as Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy asks why the hell no one has been fired for the BBC's Glastonbury shambles, I'm trying to find out what it is about the state broadcaster that allows staff to screw up on an epic scale but still keep their overpaid jobs. £580,000 a year Director General Tim Davie, for example. This guy just staggers from one self-created crisis to the next. He's absolutely hapless, absolutely useless. Why is he still there? 03444991000. And finally, the mounting financial problems of Meghan and Harry as they frantically slim down their number of employees in a desperate bid to save a few dollars. 03444991000. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Monday night together. And as always on a Monday, I'm very pleased for the first 60 minutes of this week's set of political asylums. It is Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's brilliant international editor. Welcome, Isabel.
Good evening. Wouldn't it be funny if Starmer actually did say something, somehow reflected how the whole nation feels when he next speaks to Macron? That would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yes. As he arrives in all his pomp, just grab him. Oi, you, I want to work with you.
Exactly.
I'd like to see that. Now, you've brought in a story which is to do with the insanity of our PIP arrangements, our personal money that we hand to people to add to their already substantial incomes quite often. But we can kick off with one, in my view, abuse of the PIP scheme, because it involves this. This is the madness of the government-backed motability scheme. This is where, the idea was people who are disabled, who can't get around, in the right circumstances, the government, the country, the nation, if you like, will provide these poor people with a car so they can get around. Now, that's a decent enough idea. I don't mind that if they need it. But this motability scheme has sort of grown like a kind of hydra with so many heads. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And now it turns out that in this country, 1 in every 5 new cars is bought by the Motability scheme. Last year, in 2024, they took £600 million was funneled from the Work and Pensions Department to the Motability scheme, which used that money to help provide 589,000 welfare claimants in England and Wales with publicly subsidised new cars. 589,000 people got new cars on the Motability scheme. So you think, oh man, that's a lot of people with very serious disabilities. I didn't realise so many people were so badly disabled that they need a new car, courtesy of the British taxpayer and the government. Well, it turns out that perhaps they don't. 32,160 of these cars went to people allegedly suffering from anxiety and depression. Yeah, I mean, you know, all due sympathy for people who've got anxiety and depression, but why does that mean you need a new car? This is my favourite element of mine, Isabel. 770 of these cars went to people with a proven track record of abusing alcohol and drugs. So we gave people who'd abused alcohol and drugs, we gave them new cars. And as I said in my intro, when you get to some of the smaller numbers of cars that were handed around, it turns into a comedy show. 40 people got brand new cars because they had tennis elbow. 20 people got them because they had food intolerance issues. 10 people, I like this one, they got cars because in life they had failed to thrive. I don't know what that means, but my all-time favourite, as I've said in my monologue, and this, I just can't get my head around this. 20 people last year got free cars from the government, from you and I, from British taxpayers, because they were suffering from constipation. What the hell is going on here?
I mean, failed to thrive thing is also, I mean, so much of this is absolutely ludicrous, isn't it? Failed to thrive is what is happening to our whole country. Our country cannot thrive.
It's the story of my life, Isabel. You know?
I mean, yeah, we're all due cars on that basis. But the whole scheme needs to be scrapped. I'm sorry, it is so rotten to the core that the whole thing needs to be completely dismantled, and we can perhaps start again with a scheme for a very, very, very small number of the most needy, because that's what a civilized society does. And I'm talking a tiny fraction of the current claimants. It is a complete and utter scandal, this. I mean, I remember, I think it was one of our own papers, the Sunday Times, did an expose on this not that long ago. You know, it's not like this is new, you know, and papers keep on having to expose the lunacy of this scheme year after year, and yet successive governments do nothing about it. And we cannot go on like this. I don't know where the people who make these fraudulent claims, because it is fraudulent to say if you've got constipation you should be given a car on the taxpayer's dime. You know how they think that the country can keep on prospering, or that the country can keep on paying for their lives, because there comes a point when the whole thing falls in on itself, because there's not enough people working to pay for the people who aren't. Yeah,
let's have a quick look at some of the sums involved. As I said earlier, last year, the 2024, £600 million was funneled from the Work and Pensions Department. That's basically the welfare department, that's Liz Kendall's department, to help them pay for 589,000 new cars. The boss of Motability, a guy called Andrew Miller, good luck to him. He's earning £750,000 a year. He's sitting on a stockpile of apparently of £4 billion worth of brand new cars waiting to be distributed among the brand new generation of constipation sufferers, and also Motability's entire turnover is a sort of astonishing £7 billion every year. They should just stop this. This is crazy.
It's completely crazy, and I'd like to think that a new government coming in would just scrap the whole thing. Like I say, it is so systematically, so completely and utterly dysfunctional, and has moved so far from what I assume was its original, quite laudable purpose. I mean, there are, of course, some people who really do benefit from having a specially adapted car, but with these constipation sufferers, is there some kind of adjustment that's made to their vehicle, which means that they can't, that it's a special
I don't know, mate.
The mind boggles, doesn't it?
It does. Apologists for the Motability scheme will tell you that this is that in fact they're not free cars. That these are people who are claiming PIP or other benefits, other welfare, who agree to take a percentage of their benefit payments, their welfare payments, to take that off their payments, and that kind of allegedly pays for their car. But essentially, it's free cars on the government.
Racket.
Free. It's a racket. Of course, it's a racket. If they're giving out cars to people, food intolerance. What has that got to do with whether or not you need a new car?
The boss of the scheme should be, I'm afraid the boss of the scheme and the management need to be sacked. But as I say, I think the whole scheme needs to be scrapped. But how on earth can the boss be presiding over this level of complete systematic abuse?
Let's note that all the problems, that all this sort of chaos and the crisis of the government that we saw last week is down to the fact that these 130 left-wing rebels, the backbencher rebels, this is exactly the sort of thing that they want to continue with. This madness of Motability. Yes. 590,000 new cars being given out to members of the British public in 1 year alone. These people, these Labour people, these rebels last week, this is exactly what they want to carry on with. They don't want to touch this at all. They want you, me, every British taxpayer to carry on funding this ridiculous, generous insanity. And that's why the government are going to have to raise our taxes. We'll talk about that a little later. But they're going to have to raise our taxes because the left-wingers, the backbench left-wingers, won't allow Starmer or Reeves or Liz Kendall to do anything sensible about the derangement of the Motability scheme and of course lots of other elements of our welfare craziness as well. And I think you've got something to tell us after the next break, which feeds right into this. So we're going to look at another hopeless, horrible kind of exploitation of our mad welfare scheme after these messages. Stay where you are, folks.
most of the Labour MPs voted to prescribe them under the Terrorism Act of 2000. And it goes further, of course, than vandalism, doesn't it, Mike? They sabotage, that's the word I would use, sabotage 2 RAF aircraft to the point of £7 million. But not only did they sabotage them, this is at a time when we're all manner of global conflicts and threats around us. And so to take away the capability from our Royal Air Force, it is an act of terrorism, in my view.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi, welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. I've got a couple of communications from our audience here. Tom in Gloucester says we're talking cobblers, Isabel. We don't know how it works. Getting cars, you are allowed a mobility allowance as part of your PIP payments. Well, Tom, go out and buy your own bloody car, like the rest of us, all right? Here's something I thought you might be amused by. George, Isabel, has written in to say, I'm sure if I applied for a mobility car because I had constipation, I'd be told where I could stick my application. And who knows, it may ease the situation. The thing is, though, very funny, George, very good. But the thing is, you wouldn't be told where you can stick your application. It looks as if you'd get a car. This is the insanity of it. Now, you've got another aspect of PIP. What does it stand for again? Personal
independence.
Personal independence payments. These are the payments where you might have a job, you might have sources of income, but the government has decided you're not earning enough, so they're going to help you more. Personally, I just think if you got a job, you don't get welfare. But again, this is the madness of it. So tell us the element that you've got here, Isabel. So
I was contacted by someone I'm just going to loosely refer to as basically a whistleblower, but they were previously an assessor of claims for personal independence payments. So they were one of the people that has to decide whether or not someone who says they deserve these payments is truly entitled to them. And this source told me of a whole new trend in claims, and it's from the parents of children who've been diagnosed with ADHD. And if they're diagnosed with ADHD, they may, in fact, those kids get money goes to the parents, of course, something called disability living allowance. So it does make sense if you're on the take to have your child diagnosed with ADHD, because then they get disability living allowance, or may do. But here's the new thing. So having got their child diagnosed with ADHD, which comes with all sorts of benefits, parents are now trying to claim PIP for themselves on the basis that ADHD is thought to be hereditary, or there's a hereditary theme in ADHD. So if their kid has attention deficit disorder, then surely they must have it, and that means they must qualify for PIP themselves, even if they didn't previously realise they had it till they had children. Obviously, if the kids got it, well, that must mean mum and dad have it too. I mean, what a joke. What a complete and utter joke. It's a whole new level of claiming extra money because you must have something in your mind because your child has it.
So this is it. This is all part of our culture. This nation and the people of this nation, I'm afraid to say, or many people in this nation, they're addicted to welfare. We have an addiction welfare culture. Massive problem. I mean, I would say ADHD, whether you're children or adults, that's attention deficiency syndrome. You know, I'm not trying to undermine the importance of that or diminish it as a condition. But why does that mean you get free money from the government? Why does it mean that maybe you get a free car as well? Why? Why do you get benefits just because you've got ADHD?
I mean, I think it's grossly over diagnosed anyway. You know, we were talking about this, I think, on Mike's show this morning. A very small number of children may have some kind of problem where they bounce around too much and can't concentrate on anything. But my own view, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of people that write in and complain to the show, my view is that probably the majority of those kids diagnosed with ADHD don't need any medication whatsoever. They certainly don't need any extra benefits. What they need is better parenting, different parenting. Perhaps more fortunate families are less likely to have their children diagnosed with ADHD because the kids have got more space to run around, a stricter routine or whatever. That is my instinctive view. And I'm not saying that there is no one with ADHD, but I think it's massively, massively over-diagnosed. And I don't think it helps children to be stuffing them with drugs for something that could be resolved in a much more holistic way.
No, but if you've got a kid, if you know, your parents, and you've got a kid or two kids or something, you know, who are, you know, disabled, I don't know, they've got some sort of terrible problem, they can't walk or something like that, wheelchairs and all that, then I can understand you getting benefits. But I don't understand why you get benefits if your kid can't pay attention very well. Why on earth do you get, why does the government give people money for that? I'm not wishing to seem unsympathetic to parents who have kids with ADHD. I'm sure it could be a real nightmare, and I feel sorry for the kids and the parents. But why does the government give them money for this? Can't just give everybody money every time something not particularly nice happens in their lives. This is why this nation is in such a mess. This is why this nation has a grotesque, obscene £300 billion a year welfare bill, because we've decided, the government, successive governments have decided, we're going to hand out money to everybody. Oh, you fell over this morning, did you? Here's £1,000. Oh, you mean your kid's got a bit of a cold? Right, that's worth 50 quid a week for the rest of your life. It's insane. Why are we doing? Why is ADHD worth the government giving families money? What? Why? I don't get it.
Well, it isn't. And the really worrying thing is that we now know that this Labour government is stuffed full of hard left MPs who are not going to accept any form of trimming, still less actual severance of these benefits. You know, Keir Starmer, for all his faults, was trying, along with the welfare secretary, was actually trying to reduce this stuff. And what happened? He just couldn't do it. He could not do it. He faced a huge rebellion and a lot of bleeding hearts saying, well, you can't, you know, we're not in the business of making life harder for anybody. No. And this is just the beginning of it. You know, if he couldn't get last week's welfare reforms through, what more hope is there for him to get any other trimming of the budget through? Just
want to stress this to our wonderful audience. You know, I mean, they're bright people. They've worked this out already, but I wouldn't mind having a chat about this, folks. This is what we're talking about. So this crisis last week when Starmer and Reeves, you know, old crybaby Rachel, couldn't get their welfare reforms through. They needed to save $5 billion. And because of these 130 left-wing backbench Labour rebels, they couldn't get any savings through. In fact, by the time those debates had ended, the bill had added £100 million to our welfare bill. So it didn't go at all well. But this, folks, this is where the money's going. It's going to kids with ADHD. It's going on free cars for people who are constipated, who have tennis elbow. These 130 left-wing MPs, they think that is what government is for. It is to take money from the wealthy, from the wealth creators, from companies that create wealth. It's to take as much as humanly possible from them and to give it to people with constipation so they can have free cars. That, in a nutshell, is Labour politics. And we're stuck with that, folks, because those 130 rebels last week, they won the day. And they have now got Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves in their pocket. Expect more of this madness, folks. And we're going to talk about this when we come back. So stick around.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This
welcome back. Now, I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, bear with us. We're just going to preface our conversation with a couple of TV clips. The first is a montage of various Labour luminaries telling us that they definitely won't be raising taxes. Take it away, Labour.
All of our plans are fully costed and fully funded. That means no tax rises for working people. We're not going to be raising tax on working people.
We will not raise taxes on working people.
We're not putting up taxes on working people.
Labour government will not raise income tax, will not raise national insurance contributions and will not raise VAT.
We're not going to increase tax on working people, and that means
that Labour will not be putting up taxes on working people.
But no, we don't think that we should be raising taxes on working people.
There'll be no additional taxes on households under a Labour government.
Let me be absolutely clear, we will not raise tax for working people.
Liars, Labour. Right, here is, now, in contrast to that montage of fibbing and lying from Labour's lying government. They are such a bunch of liars, aren't they? Here's that old dinosaur, failed Labour leader Lord Neil Kinnock on Sky News yesterday.
So two things. You think that when Rachel Reeves comes to present her budget in the autumn, number one, she should contemplate tax rises, and secondly, you would say tax rises on wealth and assets?
Yes, I would, because I think they should stick to the fiscal rules they've established as a way of strong reassurance about their commitment. It's very, very, very important, not just for the public, but for the markets too, and indeed for their own self-confidence, which is very important.
So they are, Isabel. This is the point. On a general basis, it's quite clear, and that's, I think, why she was crying last week. Rachel Reeves knows she's going to have to renege on her solemn promise not to put taxes up. There's only one way we can avoid bankruptcy now that now that Starmer and Reeves have failed to get the welfare bill down. They haven't got it down at all. So there's only one way they can literally avoid bankruptcy, and that's to raise money by taxing us. Now, there's old Kinnock there, classic old Labour, isn't it? Let's just tax the rich. Now, OK, rinse the rich, if you like. Anybody with more than £10 million worth of assets, 2% off everything they own, which, by the way, will be incredibly unfair to many people who might have, you know, because they've lived in it all their lives, a very expensive house. Doesn't mean to say they're cash rich. Having £10 million worth of assets doesn't necessarily make you a captain of industry. You might be an old lady who's living in a very expensive house that's been in your family your whole life, and you earn, or you're bringing in £100 a week. So it's going to be unfair. But there he goes. It's the classic old Labour. Oh, what should we do? I know. Let's tax the rich and give all the money to the poor, to the alleged poor. So it's a sad sight to see, isn't it? Here we go, careering down the old socialist path. Rinse the rich, give it to the poor, and guess what? That will only accelerate the exodus of wealth creators. At the moment, we've got a millionaire leaving this country every 45 minutes. That's only going to get worse with Kinnock's idea. In fact, more taxes will mean more wealth creators leaving, and if the wealth creators leave, the nation loses wealth. It's bad for everybody. This is incoherent politics by Labour, isn't it?
It's just so naive. You know, you're left thinking, do they not know any rich people and how rich people think and operate? Because super rich people, and as you say, £10 million, well, it seems pretty super rich to me. But there are people who are worth far, far, far less than that who are leaving the country already or have left the country. You know, people don't sit around going, well, yeah, I think I'll just wait to be clobbered yet more by this government. These people are already leaving, have left, planning to leave. And so I just don't think it would raise very much. And if they're planning to include property in that whole calculus, that will have a devastating effect on the property market, because it will affect the very high end of the property market, and all of that just filters down. You know, you can't affect one bit, you can't hammer one bit of the property market without it having a knock-on effect on everything else. So I think it is completely insane. I was just looking at a really interesting table of millionaire migration, and maybe you saw this earlier on today. And in a kind of global list of countries, the UK is losing the most millionaires of any country pretty much in the world. You know, we are, and we are way out there. I mean, it's not just like we're a little bit ahead of the other country, the next in line, that are losing millionaires. We are losing far more than anyone else. The next up is China at almost, about less than half of what we're losing. And then India and so on. I mean, it's a fascinating table, this. We are so obviously getting something wrong. And you hear these lefties saying, oh, that's great, we don't need millionaires. What planet are these people on?
Yeah, you so do. Now, Kinnock, this is another annoying aspect of this. Did you see him sitting there on Sky, you know, just like this sort of big sort of heaving ball of Jabba the Hutt complacency? You know, he's done very, very well out of the public purse. So has the rest of his family. So has his son. You know, these are people who do very, very well in the public sector. So, well, let's just tax the rich. How about we tax you, Kinnock? How would you like that? Anyway, he says that if we do tax all the people worth £10 million or more for 2% of their wealth, that will raise £11 billion. And this is the thing that annoys me. Right, Kinnock is a great one. And so are the rest of them, Starmer as well, for saying trouble with reform and the Tories, these right wings, they're just populists. They'll do anything just for popularity, but we need to be a very serious party. So what was it? What was his justification for this insanity of rinsing everyone worth £10 million or more for 2% of their wealth? What was his justification? It will be very popular with people.
Absolutely classic. Yeah, sure, it will be popular with people until they realise that it's not going to work at all, and that the country overall is just going to get poorer and poorer and poorer. It's a complete non-starter, this. But just because you and I are sitting here and we know it's a non-starter and it won't work, doesn't mean these morons that are in charge of running the country won't do it. I mean, I genuinely think that this is a direction we're heading in, because they're getting desperate, aren't they? They've got to find ever more desperate extreme measures to try to pay for the things that they can't seem to be capable of cutting.
And do you know what it all boils down to? People like Kinnock and most of this cabinet, Bridget Phillipson, little class warrior, and Ed Miliband, all these people, Starmer himself, of course, they don't like rich people. They don't like rich people because, you know, these are, you know, they're symbols of an unfair society. So it is this antipathy towards decent people who've done well in life, started up companies, maybe employ hundreds of people, maybe, you know, they've retired and they're enjoying their wealth. Labour doesn't like people like this, and it just sees them as kind of milking cows. What you do is you just take their money, milk them dry, and then give it to the public sector. Give it to welfare claimants. And it's this antipathy towards people who've done well in life, people who are successful, people who have got money. I mean, I don't understand why you would not just typically hate someone just because they've done well or they've got money, but that is the way it is. And with that attitude, this government is taking us to hell in a handcart, because more and more successful people, as you said, Isabel, what they do is they go, well, sod this, I know what I'll do. I'll get on a private jet and I'll go and fly somewhere else to live. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of very, very student politic-y redistribution. And whenever I hear people shouting about, you know, people need to pay more taxes, you know, I always think, well, okay, if that's what you want, why don't you go off and make a direct debit to HMRC, voluntarily pay a bit more? I actually don't know anyone who voluntarily pays more tax than they need to. And yet you've got these people who seem to think that this is something that should be campaigned for, just as long as it's other people that have to pay it.
Yeah. I mean, this is what's happened. These lefties who are sort of taking over this country culturally, at least. This is the state we've got us into. You know, the people of a proper country should be doing this. This is the dynamics of how proper, healthy countries run. The government tries to tax us as much as they possibly can, and we try to pay as little tax as we possibly can. That's the way it goes. Now, you've got all these campaigns. In the past, it used to be down with the taxes, don't pay down with the government, down, no more taxes, no more taxes. Now, these revolutionaries, these Labour Party, these socialist left-wing activists, they think we should all be going around, let's pay more tax, pay more tax. No, thank you very much, because if we pay more tax, we know what happens to it. It goes to people with constipation so they can have new cars. That's what happens when we pay more tax.
Exactly that. You know, I mean, I don't like paying tax. I don't really think many people do. But I would feel a lot better about it if I knew that, even if it wasn't every penny that was being well spent, but if I thought that the vast majority of my tax was being really well spent to make this country as amazing as it could possibly be, then I think, well, yeah, fair dues. You know, I'm paying fair amount of tax for great services and to make life better for people who aren't as fortunate as I am. But instead, like most people, I'm left thinking I'm being completely ripped off, because I'm every month I'm working as hard as I can, as many jobs as I can manage. And yet, this is how many people feel, the hard-working few, or it feels like ever fewer of us. All that money that's being taken away by the government is going to buy cars for people with constipation, or provide yet more luxurious things for channel migrants who've broken into our country.
Exactly right. I mean, that's the other aspect of Labour's approach to this country that's so annoying. You know, it's, we don't like people, don't like him or her. She's earning £200,000 a year. We hate her. Well, you know, okay, that she may be earning £200,000 a year, but my guess is most people who earn £200,000 a year, they have to work very hard for it. So it's this kind of attack on hard workers who make a few quid in order to take their money and give it to people with constipation so they can get new cars. This is a dynamic that will ruin this country, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. I keep saying this, but we've had 1 year of Labour, 4 more years of this. I just don't think, I mean, it's terrifying, isn't it? The idea of 4 more years of this lot.
Years, you hear more and more people talking about how do we bring about an earlier election, because people just don't see how we can tolerate this for years and years of this. We need a whole new culture in this country, one in which success and riches are celebrated and become a source of aspiration, and that where young people actually want to be that, rather than just looking to the state to look after them.
Exactly right, exactly right. Listen, when we come back, it's the 20th anniversary since 7/7, the awful July the 7th terrorist attacks in the summer back there here in London. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the very moving service that happened at St Paul's today, speech by the King. Quite a realistic speech, funnily enough, uncharacteristically, from the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper. But I'm just wondering, in 20 years, how much we have learned after those terrible bombings on that awful day. We'll talk about that after this break. Stay tuned, folks.
Most of the Labour MPs voted to prescribe them under the Terrorism Act of 2000. And it goes further, of course, than vandalism, doesn't it, Mike? They sabotage, that's the word I would use, sabotage 2 RAF aircraft to the point of £7 million. But not only did they sabotage them, this is at a time when we're all manner of global conflicts and threats around us. And so to take away the capability from our Royal Air Force, it is an act of terrorism, in my view.
Talk across the UK on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, today is the 20th anniversary, as I said before the break, of that terrible day 20 years ago, 7th of July, where a number of bombs went off on the underground system, buses. I think 52 people died, 770 injured. A terrible, terrible day, and it's quite right that we mark this anniversary. Of course, a big service, very moving service at St Paul's Cathedral. The King talked about the extraordinary courage and compassion displayed in the aftermath of this senseless evil of the terrorist attacks. Now, you know, I think that's all very well, but we always tend to focus on the bravery of the rescue workers and the courage of the victims and so on, which is fine. But do you remember in Manchester after the Arena Grande bombing, you know, that terrible terrorist attack there? And all the people of Manchester gathered and started singing "Don't Look Back in Anger," you know, the Oasis song. Well, and I remember watching that and said, no, do look back in anger. Yeah. Be furious. And I'm just wondering whether, as a nation, as a British culture, have we really encompassed the threat that Islamic terrorists pose to us? Because only about 5 years ago, police chiefs warned us that the greatest growing terrorist threat to this nation was from the far right. That was a load of claptrap, absolute rubbish. The greatest threat to this nation and indeed the world from terrorism is from Islamic extremists. They have been responsible for something like 70 to 75% of terrorist attacks since 2000 in this country. The last 25 years, 75%. Global terrorism database records 24 jihadist Islamist terrorist attacks in the UK up to 2019. That's in 19 years from the turn of the century. The fact of the matter is, you know, so we've seen Islamic attacks on Westminster Bridge, we remember that. Manchester Arena, of course, I was just talking about that. London Bridge, just down here, I remember watching it from this very studio. And, you know, so this is where the threat's coming from. And to be fair, Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, did make a speech today to say Islamic terrorists pose the biggest threat to this nation, which is a bit of a sea change. But I think over the years, since 7/7, as a nation, we have not had the guts to actually face up to the reality of this. The threat of terrorism mostly comes from Islamists, doesn't it?
Yes, I mean, that's what the statistics will tell you. I mean, of course, very, very periodically, there is some awful thing by another group, including what might genuinely be described as far right. I mean, I think the murderer of Joe Cox was somebody who could perhaps be defined as far right. And so it's not to say that there are never any atrocities by the so-called far right, but mercifully the so-called far right is not well organised, it's not well funded, and it doesn't have a united mission. You know, you've got sporadic nutters, basically, whose politics might be defined in that fashion. But really, the organised, well-funded and really ideological threat comes from Islamic extremists. And some of these groups are not groups that are tolerated even in, for example, the Middle East, you know. So to give an example, the Muslim Brotherhood, we in the UK seem to think that's just fine and dandy. I mean, that is prescribed by a number of other Middle Eastern countries. We somehow seem to think, well, hashtag be kind, let everybody live and let live. But the problem with some of these extreme Islamist groups is that their whole agenda is not about letting us live and let live. You know, they have a vision that involves imposing their ideology on all of us, and they see us as infidels and are quite happy to, you know, chop our heads off at the moment of their choosing.
What did you make of the fact? So the government finally got Palestine Action proscribed, so they are now officially a forbidden terrorist organisation. The great and the good, of course, were out demonstrating, saying we still support Palestine Action. Load of people arrested, including an 83-year-old former vicar, a female vicar. I mean, what should we do about these people?
Well, the Palestine Action people.
The people who are making a point of ignoring the fact that Palestine Action have been proscribed.
Well, I mean, there's no point in prescribing it if that's meaningless. You've got to actually take action, a different type of action against Palestine Action. What's the point of prescribing it if there's no punishment for continuing to operate under its name, or indeed just creating another name, but yet with the same ideals? I think we're heading towards a situation in the UK where we're going to have to get a lot tougher in a much broader way. And I came back from the Middle East earlier, about 5 days ago, and one of the first things I saw when I looked out of my window looking onto the embankment in central London was a guy that looked frankly off his head on goodness knows what, wandering down the middle of the embankment. So there's a very main arterial road through central London. He was wandering down the middle in such a way as to stop traffic, waving two gigantic Palestinian flags. Now, this was an Afro-Caribbean individual, so I don't think he's got any skin in the game in Gaza. Down the road he's going, waving huge Palestinian flags off his head on something. And you know what? I think we've got to the point where if I were in charge, I would be banning, except at very specific occasions, I would be banning the displaying of flags of other countries in our country.
It's a good thought.
If that sounds extreme to people, I can tell you that there are a number of Western European countries that do ban flags of other nations. We're losing sight of who we are in our rush.
That's what I was going to say. You know, what lessons learned and all that. What did we learn from 7/7? I mean, if you look at the rape gang scandal, that was this country, the people of this country, the authorities being scared to death of confronting the truth about certain elements of the Islamic community, of the Muslim community. In other words, we shy away from confronting some of the awkward truths about what's going on with our Muslim community. And therefore, I would suggest that we didn't really learn much from 7/7 at all. It's all very well to praise the rescue workers, but culturally, I don't think we learned a damn thing. And that is kind of worrying. Isabel, fantastic to talk to you. You'll be back on Wednesday. I'll look forward to that. That is the brilliant Isabel Oakeshott Talks International editor. Give us a ring, anything that we were talking about. Let us know what you think. Should we be giving out free cars to people with constipation? I don't know what your answer will be there. Maybe let me know. 03444991000 or tennis elbow, you know. Is that worth a free car? Let me know. And after the break, we'll be talking to Rupert Lowe, so stick around for that. You don't want to miss it.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Taking your calls in about half an hour or so. 03444991000. Should the government be giving out 589,000 free cars to people on PIP, people who claim welfare, people with constipation, people with tennis elbows? People's here saying to me, oh yeah, but the thing is, you know, they take it off your benefits and all that. Well, I don't know. I mean, you know, why are we giving ADHD? Why is that worth a new car? Tennis elbow, constipation, depression, anxiety. More than 32,000 cars were given to people with depression and anxiety, allegedly. Why do they need new cars? Can you let me know? 03444991000. I'm not trying to be unsympathetic to their conditions, but I don't understand why being depressed or being anxious means that you warrant a free car from the government or from British taxpayers. And as for constipation and tennis elbow, don't get me started. Let me know what you think of that. 03444991000. And they're going to tax the rich. They're going to tax the rest of us. Let me know what you think about the fact that Rachel Reeves, crybaby Rachel, is going to renege on her promise. She's going to tax you again, going to tax us again. And Kinnock, old Lord Neil Kinnock, says we should be taxing everybody worth over £10 million to the tune of 2%. That would raise lots of money. But Labour, you know, taxing the rich to give to people with constipation so they can have free cars. You know, it's just crazy, isn't it? 03444991000. And what have we learnt since 7/7, 20 years ago? Have we learnt that much? Are we too lily-livered when it comes to standing up to certain elements of our Islamic community? We still seem to be frightened of offending them. Perhaps we should stand up to them. What do you think? 03444991000. Right, before we get to any of that, though, let's talk to my very next guest. Really pleased that he's agreed to join us. He is the independent MP for Great Yarmouth and the leader of the Restore Britain movement, Rupert Lowe. Welcome, Rupert.
Hello there, Kevin. How are you?
I'm very, very well. Well, let's talk about, shall we, the migrant crisis, because it became particularly poignant last week. We had quite a nice weekend. Nobody came across Saturday and Sunday. Over 500 on Friday, though. And altogether, last week, 2,599 migrants crossed the Channel illegally, broke into this country, essentially. Now, these people will, over the next year, cost us, British taxpayers, this is last week's contingent alone, £140 million. They cost £40,000 a year each. Meanwhile, the French police don't seem to do anything at all for the £800 million we've given them over the years to patrol their beaches properly. Well, they certainly patrol their beaches. The trouble is they don't seem to stop any migrants or any boats. They just look at them for all that money that we've given them. Rupert, I know it sounds like an obvious question, but since our government seems to have no idea how to deal with this escalating national crisis, what should we do?
Well, Kevin, a sovereign nation, and the British people voted for that in 2016, its first priority should be protect its borders. The fact that we can't protect our borders against these people coming over illegally in boats, mainly young men of fighting age, is a national disgrace. And as Sir Edward Lee said, the father of the house, we all know it's wrong. We're all deeply concerned about it. And yet the Labour government tells us, and has been telling us for most of the past year, rather like a broken record, that they will stop the boats coming and they will solve the problem. It's got worse. I think we all know the solution. The solution is a zero-tolerance policy, which the Australians pursued. And to remove the benefits that are handed out, as you quite rightly say. These people are coming here and they will be a burden on the British taxpayer. I'm quite pleased we've actually scored a victory recently. We've actually got now the government to agree that they will release the universal credit claimants, basically by immigration status and nationality now. I think very often our government the front bench is completely unaware of what's going on. I think the civil service knows, but I don't think the ministers have enough real life experience to be able to work out what's going on. So we need some urgent action. I think all of us know our country is slowly slipping away in front of our eyes. And these groups of men from a different culture being settled across our country, paid for by the hard-working British taxpayer, and effectively, I think, undermining the whole basis of our culture and our society is entirely wrong. So my view is, and I think most British people share this view, is we should be returning them immediately. I've said in the past we need to find a solution. If that solution involves sending them to an island offshore England or Scotland, where they wait until they're processed, rather like the Australians do in Nauru Island, then that's what we have to do. But we have to start to get tough and we have to start to get real. Until we do that, frankly, I think it's going to continue to get worse.
And over in America, Donald Trump seems to be sticking to his word. He's organising mass deportations of people who are in America illegally, who, like here, broke in across America's borders illegally and are living there. And he's organising mass deportations, as many as he can. You've advocated that in the past, Rupert, and a lot of people agree with you. Why is it that your former party, Reform UK, Nigel Farage in particular, why are they so against your idea of mass deportations or repatriating at least some of the people who broke into our country and reside here illegally at our expense? Why is Reform UK against that, do you think?
Well, you'll have to ask him that question, Kevin, but you're quite right. He did try and water down several of my speeches which talked about mass deportation. I never, as he incorrectly said, talked about repatriation. What I talked about was deporting those people who arrive here illegally, those people who are living here illegally, and those foreign criminals who are clogging up our prisons, about 10,500 of them, who have broken the law. So I think we have to start by deporting those people who are not being good citizens. And when we say they're illegal migrants, and I think they are illegal economic migrants, as opposed to the Liberal left calling them asylum seekers, I don't believe they are asylum seekers, and the fact that the majority of them are men tends to lend credence to that view. If it was genuinely families fleeing problems in their own country, number one, they should stay in the first safe country they get to, and number two, there would be a greater selection of women and children, which there don't appear to be. So this is a major issue. I am quite clear. Illegal means illegal. If you or I do something illegal, we have either our police force locally or the Metropolitan Police coming down on us like a ton of bricks, and we have to then bear the consequences of that. And yet, these people are coming here illegally. They're being aided and abetted to come here illegally by border force. I would argue that to aid and abet somebody who's breaking the law is in itself illegal, but that doesn't seem to find any sort of support from the powers that be.
Well, it should be. I mean, the whole thing, you know, these liberal Guardian reader types, they always say, you see, the thing is, once they've come across the channel, although that journey is illegal, because it's an unregistered boat and they mostly don't have documents, although that's illegal, as soon as they claim asylum, their presence becomes legal. That's not true. That is a political decision. All we have to do is reverse that political decision and say, I'm sorry, you arrived, like they did in Australia, you arrived here illegally, ergo, you immediately negate your right to claim asylum. Why don't we do that, Rupert?
It's a very good question, Kevin, and I think it's because we lack the will to do it. I mean, you were talking a minute ago about motability. Well, motability, I highlighted motability 2 years ago, 1 year ago, and now it's becoming a major topic. This is that the government again lacks the will, it seems, to do what is fair to the majority of British taxpayers. They continue to flog the British taxpayer. And as I say, the analogy I use is a bit like a pit pony, the poor British taxpayers having to work harder and harder and pay more and more tax to fund the indolent and those on welfare. And I've always said, you know, those people genuinely who need to be supported, we must support those. A civilized society does that. But we have now a bunch of freeloaders who are taking advantage of the people who are contributing and taking risk and employing people and running businesses. And we continue to flog them. And the analogy I use is like a pit pony in the mines. You can flog them and flog them and flog them, and in the end they just drop down dead, and then you can't flog them anymore. And I think that's what's going to happen to our economy if we're not very careful. Our people who are, if you like, the drivers of wealth, i.e. the risk takers, those people who employ people, those people who are visionaries, they are effectively leaving the country in incredibly large numbers. They're going to Dubai, where I saw Isabel Oakeshott. You were interviewing her a minute ago, whether she was in Dubai or not in Dubai, but she's living there now, I think.
Yeah, she is. Yep.
More and more Brits are living in Dubai. They're living in Italy. They're living in you know, Greece. They're living in all these countries that are welcoming them, and they're leaving us. And if we get the lunacy of the Kinnocks of this world suggesting a wealth tax, we all know wealth taxes don't work, there'll be an even bigger exodus of those people who actually are the rainmakers. Yeah, so socialists don't seem to understand that you can't basically drive your risk takers and your wealth creators out of the country and expect the economy to continue to struggle on. And as Abraham Lincoln said, Kevin, you don't make the poor rich by making the rich poorer.
That's very good. Absolutely. Now, obviously, that exodus of the wealthy, the wealth creators, is extremely worried. And should Kinnock get his own way and they start taxing everybody worth £10 million or more for 2% of their wealth, there will be that exodus will be accelerated greatly. So it's going to get even worse. So these people are all leaving. Now, we've been discussing, shall we say, our illegal migrant crisis, but our migrant crisis really encompasses, probably almost more worrying, the legal migrancy problem that we have, insofar that not so long ago we were literally letting in more than 1 million people a year legally to come here and do low-grade jobs. Now, that level of invasion, if you like, is having a cultural effect. And I've seen you writing about it on social media, on Twitter and Facebook, saying that you're worried about the fact that you can go to quite a few towns now in this country and barely recognise them as culturally British. You talked also about, you know, going through villages and seeing 5 Turkish barbers, where God knows what you can get done in those places, but trust me, you can't get a haircut, and so on and so forth. Try and tell us what worries you about this cultural dilution of British traditional values that I think is going on right now.
Well, firstly, you have to blame Boris Johnson for a lot of the legal immigration. Under Boris, it mushroomed. And, I mean, there is a correlation between this immigration and, if you like, a burden, increased burden on the taxpayer. So it's all very well to have more people here. The objective of what I would describe as beneficial immigration, and there is an argument for a small number of highly skilled people who are going to benefit the economy, then your GDP per capita goes up. If you just bring in vast numbers of low-skilled workers, your GDP may go up, but your GDP per capita goes down. So that's the answer to the first part of your question. The second part of your question is, it appears that our establishment realizes that the post-war plan to have a sort of what I call a nirvana-like country of sort of mass cultural influences is failing. So the sort of experiment with multiculturalism, I think, has definitively failed. they're not prepared to admit that. And as a result of that, we have got, as you say, and I'm fighting this in my own constituency in Great Yarmouth, where we have these Turkish barbers shops. I mean, I think we all know that they're a front, most of them, for money laundering, for selling illegal tobacco, for selling illegal vapes, for whatever you want to speculate on, Kevin. And I, unfortunately, you know, to get the police to take action, one has to have definitive evidence that that is happening. Otherwise, they won't go and raid them and find out what actually is going on. But I think illegality is illegality, and a society that that embraces and tolerates illegality is a society which ultimately is failing. And this is where I say I think most of us can see our country slipping slowly through our fingers. It's a great country. I don't want to be too negative, and I think we can still rescue it. But and that's why I've set up Restore Britain. It's not a party, it's a movement. I didn't want to create further division. I wanted to create unity. And I think if Britain is to be saved, we need to have the buy-in of everybody, cross-party people. So let's park the petty party sort of arguments and let's concentrate on doing what's right for Britain. And that means unifying behind the fact that we know things are going wrong. We know when it's working properly, we've got the best country in the world. And let's try and then restore what we did have and encourage those people who've left to come back. And that means respecting our constitution, respecting free speech, respecting minorities, and effectively reducing the size of the state, holding the civil service to account, making them understand that they serve, they don't dictate to the people are the masters. And we've seen they didn't like the answer that was given in 2016. They didn't deliver Brexit. This is the establishment. They didn't want Brexit. The post-war plan was to create one big federal Europe with open borders and a general sort of, if you like, bureaucratic class which wasn't held to account, which is what, if you've sat in the European Parliament, you see exists over there. A sort of Napoleonic code-like elite which sits in judgment on its electorate. I don't want to live in a country like that. I want to live in the country like ours, where we respect individual freedom and we respect our constitution. So we shouldn't be tolerating this nonsense. But I think the fear of failure from the establishment, failure of what they've perpetrated, and you see it, you know, they realise, I think, that the COVID response was badly wrong. It's legislated against young people. The lockdowns were unnecessary, as Sweden showed us, and Sweden's economy fared much better than ours. It's just a series of catastrophes which shows you that statism doesn't work. It's almost as if we need to keep being reminded that communism failed and central planning just doesn't work. So what we need to do, I think, is if people agree, they've got to sign up. And I don't think we've got till, people say 29, I don't think the election will be as far away as 29. I think the economy is going to turn in on itself fairly shortly, from what I can see. And a vibrant democracy requires a vibrant economy. If the economy turns in on itself and the average standard of living drops, trust me, democracies don't last very long, and the people in power certainly don't last very long. So I think we've got some rough waters ahead. I don't want to be too negative, because I think we have a lot of natural advantages over everybody else, but we're wasting them. I don't want to say spunking them away, because it might upset some of your viewers, but I think that's what we're doing, to be frank.
Let me ask you this, Ruben, last question, really. Let me tell you, our audience, they loved you when you were in Reform, and they still do love you. We still get a lot of missives from our audience saying, why can't Rupert go back to Reform and all that? Any regrets about your split from Farage's party?
Well, I mean, I didn't expect it to happen, Kevin. I mean, I was accused of not being a good team player, but I was, I think, playing as part of the team. But I don't know the reasons. You'll have to ask them why they cooked up this sort of attempt at a political assassination. It's definitively failed. I will never work with Nigel Farage again, or indeed Richard Tice, particularly Lee Anderson, or Mohammed Ziauddin Yusuf. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm happy on my own. I think I've, as a lone MP, made as much of a difference in Parliament as it's possible to make. I've asked lots of questions. I've done lots of things like my sort of 10-minute rule bill, my adjournment debate, you know, our sort of questions which we've asked a plethora of, you know, our early day motions. So we've used all the parliamentary tools, but Parliament is skewed to favour the existing government and to help them, if you like, to hide their deficiencies without being exposed by diligent backbenchers who should be asking them difficult questions and holding them to account. So it's Parliament that needs to be reformed, and the way we're governed that needs to be changed. So no, I don't regret what happened. I'm a great believer that these things always happen for the best. Do I like the way it happened? No. Does it mean I hold those people who perpetrated it in less respect? Very much so, yes.
Well, Rupert, excellent to talk to you. Come on again soon. Thank you very much for your time. That's Rupert Lowe, independent MP now for Great Yarmouth, former Reform UK. Of course, he now runs a movement, not a political party, called Restore Britain. What do you think about what he was saying there? That he is keen on mass deportation. Do you think we need to get tough with the people who are living here illegally? You know, there are estimates that there may be millions of people here who shouldn't be here. Rupert advocates deportation for people who are not here legally, mass deportation, if you like. Do you agree? 0344 499 1000. Let's go to break now. When we come back, rape gang victim Ellie Reynolds, friend of the show, great girl. We'll talk to her after these messages.
I suffer from anxiety. Everyone suffers from anxiety. Why do 32,000 people have a free car? This one, constipation. Now, I can understand you might need to get somewhere quickly if you have the reverse of that particular syndrome. You might not want to be hanging around and waiting at a bus stop if you've got to hot-foot it to a bathroom. But if you've got constipation, it doesn't seem as much of a pressing concern. Depressive disorder, elbow disorders, obesity. If you're obese, I recommend you start walking a bit more.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Taking your calls in just a little while. 03444991000. You might want to get on the blower about this next topic. It is, of course, the, and I use this term advisedly and deliberately, the ongoing rape gang scandal. The idea that somehow this scourge has died out, I'm afraid, is for the birds. It is going on now. It is still happening. Ask anyone in any of the towns that were affected. It is still happening. In other words, gangs of predominantly Muslim men of Pakistani heritage are still preying on vulnerable young white girls, many of them underage. I thought I've got some statistics here, but why don't I discuss them with my next guest? She's a friend of the show. She's been on the show now several times. So's her dad, actually, and it's always a great pleasure to welcome to the programme Ellie Reynolds from Barrow-in-Furness. Hi, Ellie.
Hello, you all right?
I'm good. How's motherhood? How's the kid?
Tiring, but good.
Listen, I tell you why I wanted to get you on. A statistic arose last week, which I thought was shocking. So, I think you always knew that when they said, oh, well, the rape gang scandal, the grooming gang scandal, that was terrible, but it's over now. Well, it's not. It's still going on. Now, last week it emerged that Manchester Police, Greater Manchester Police, I mean, admittedly, that is the biggest police force in the country, but nevertheless, these statistics are shocking. They are investigating more than 1,000 new suspects. And this is on the basis of stories, reports, just like you once told, from 714 new victims. 714 new victims. That's in Manchester alone. So around the country, like your town and all the other towns where it happened, you can extrapolate that, you know, there must be thousands and thousands and thousands of more men under investigation for the rape gang scandal that we hoped would be over. Did you always kind of know, Ellie, that it wasn't really over?
I think when I was involved in it, I believed that it wasn't as big as what it was once I got older and I came out of it and I survived it and I started raising the awareness and helping other people and having so many people contact me, and you start piecing things together and you think, wow, this is actually a lot bigger than what anybody could imagine. I think the 714 figure and over 1,000 suspects arrested and, you know, whole operations going on, I still think that even that is a drop in the ocean.
Do you? My God.
I really do, yeah. I believe it's massive, and I believe that each town will have some sort of link. Like I always stress, these men don't just operate in one area. Your likelihood is that they move around. I know that I found that in my experience that, you know, my abusers wouldn't just operate here. They'd be up and down the country.
Really? So some of these guys, you reckon they move around from one gang to the next?
I don't think it's one gang to the next as of such. I think that there's kind of like, the only way that I could describe it is if you had a tree and you had all these branches. I strongly believe that these men move around and operate in different areas, not necessarily with different gangs, more different vulnerable children.
So they move to, they go to the victims rather than, so they move around looking for the victims. That is terrible.
I think as well that they move around a lot, so it kind of keeps them under a little bit more of a radar. If you're operating in one area and you've got one name, and you're operating in another area and you have another name, it's very hard for victims to be able to piece that puzzle together. You find that a lot of these males don't just go by one name. I know that wasn't the case in my situation anyway.
And I mean, I've talked to other victims. None of them as brilliantly articulate as you, of course. But seriously,
I bet they are.
no, actually, they're not. They're lovely girls and all that. But seriously, what they tell of. And you know, my sympathy for them knows no bounds. Obviously, poor kids, you as well. That they walk around towns like Rochdale and stuff like that, and they still see the men who raped and tortured them. Some of those men haven't even been to jail. So, I mean, do you recognise that? Do you in Barrow? Do you still see any of your tormentors?
Yeah, I do. I think that is far too common in this situation. I feel like it is just way more common than it should be, and it's not necessarily something that's unheard of. I still walk around this town and try and avoid certain places. You know, you have situations where these men that you've gone and named, they haven't even got a conviction. They never, you know, jail time is one thing, but not even a conviction or an acknowledgement is another as well. We do have that in this town where you do try and pretty much dodge a bullet, and you are very cautious of where you go, what routes you take, especially with this town being so small as well.
Yeah. Can you quickly tell the audience, just for those who haven't heard your story, can you quickly tell them your story?
Yeah, I was a victim of child sexual exploitation, forced criminality, multiple gang rape. I was held hostage for days at a time. This all went on for a 5-year period, so it took the majority of my childhood.
And so what you're saying, Ellie, is around Barrow, you still see some people, men who were responsible for your ordeal that never got punished.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
I mean,
ridiculous.
I know. It was only the other day that we'd popped to a shop, and I ended up having a little bit of a moment in tears in the car, saying to my partner, like, one of these have just walked past and I didn't even know that he was still in the area. And you really, really walk on eggshells, and you really, it's nerving. It's nervous to, you know, be in that situation where you actually don't know who you're going to see when you step out your door. You just have to hope for the best and hope that, I don't know, you can go get your shopping done, for example, or you can go into town, because luckily Barrow's kind of split into two. So I live on an island, so going over to Barrow is your problem, really.
Right. But that is terrible. So there are guys around who were responsible for your ordeal who never got punished. And I think that's the story all over the country. I think that's kind of what's going on in Manchester, that a lot of the people that the police and the authorities basically let go. They're regrouping and they're going to get them now, or at least I hope they do. But you were saying earlier that you know, those struck me those numbers in Manchester, 1,000 new suspects and 714 new victims were enormous. But you think the scale of it is probably even bigger than that?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like people crack down on the sexual side of it, and rightly so, but I also feel like people need to remember that there's a lot of grooming that goes involved, and there's different sides of this. So you can have a grooming gang with the sexual abuse side of stuff, you can have a grooming gang with, you know, the organised crime, the drug exploitation, and eventually it all merges into one thing. I seriously do feel like 714, they will be much larger amounts that'll end up coming out, and rightly so, because it's taken long enough.
Yeah. Well, it's good that they're finally getting to grips with it. Just a last word, if you don't mind, Ellie. I think I probably asked you this before, but we are finally going to get a national public inquiry into the rape gang scandal. What will you be looking for from that inquiry? Because just having a public inquiry doesn't necessarily, oh, that's brilliant, all of our problems are solved. It depends what that inquiry is like, depends what the parameters are. What will you be looking for from the public inquiry into the rape gang scandal?
I feel like from my point of view, and I guarantee many of girls and young boys in this would probably agree, I think the priority that we have at the minute is being acknowledged and being taken seriously for once. And, you know, they will have to come to us to educate themselves, because clearly they're not educated enough to do it themselves. They need the main source in this, which is the survivors of them people. So I feel like, you know, no judgment and no criminalising the girls this time around, and to actually sit and say, what is going on and how can we help, and take the ideas from the girls. I have said numerous times in this town, go into schools and raise the awareness, do open nights for parents and raise the awareness on what to look out for your children, have meetings in the police force and educate yourselves. And I feel like it needs to be taken as serious as what it is, and hopefully that's a start.
Yeah, well, I hope that is the case, that they listen to people like you and listen to all the victims, because we've got a long way to go on all of this. But Ellie, just to say to the audience, Ellie brilliantly has rebuilt her life, got a lovely partner, 3 kids, keeping her up all night, but then again, you can't have everything. But it's worth pointing out, Ellie, that, you know, you're an exception that proves the rule, that so many of the victims, the poor little girls, you know, who were treated like this, who were raped and tortured, treated like animals, they're not like you. They haven't got the strength to rebuild their lives. These lives have been ruined, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, people just have an idea that, you know, you only struggle when you go through it, and unfortunately it's stuff that we have to carry for the rest of our lives, and it impacts day-to-day lives. And I think the reason that I was so strong-minded on changing my life around was, 1, because I started thinking about the other people that were potentially involved in this, and 2, because you get to a point where you're tired of being known as Ellie the girl that was abused, and you know, you want to be able to sit there and say, well, actually, Ellie the girl that was abused but that managed to do X, Y and Z with her life, and that's what you can take me for now. But yeah, I think that people really don't see the long-term effects of it, and you know, it's not just in that moment, it's the rest of our lives, and there's daily triggers, or you know,
as you were just saying,
yeah.
Well, listen, Ellie, it's always a real pleasure to talk to you. Well, next time you're in London, you must come and see us. Do you come down much? So you'll have to come in and see us. But really good to talk to you as always. Ellie Reynolds there, grooming gang survivor, rape gang survivor. Worth pointing out as well, folks, that Ellie comes from a really loving family. So the idea that all the victims of the rape gangs, you know, were somehow, you know, sinker state dropouts who, you know, kind of lived in rubbish bins and all this and didn't really have any parents. Not true. The way it worked, the grooming gangs, the way they groomed these girls, they separated many of them from loving families who couldn't work out what the hell was going on. That's what happened to Ellie. Let me know what you think about what she was saying. 03444991000. I'm quite haunted by what she said about the fact that Manchester police are investigating 1,000 new victims. They got 714 new victims, 1,000 new suspects. She says that's just the tip of the iceberg. She thinks that the scale of it is even bigger than that. And that's only one police area, Manchester Police. So in terms of the entire country, it doesn't bear thinking about. They estimate that there are 250,000 victims of the rape gang scandal, mostly vulnerable young white girls, many of them underage. 250,000, 250,000. Think about that. 03444991000. Your calls when we come back.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In a little while, we're going to talk about the BBC. Why didn't it ever fire anyone? Lisa Nandy, the Culture Secretary, has actually grown a backbone, a spine, and she said to Tim Davie, the Director General, is no one going to lose their job over what happened in Glastonbury? No one. Well, I mean, what do you have to do to get fired at the BBC? As Tim Davie resists any idea of giving anyone their P45 for allowing anti-Semitism to disgrace the BBC's screen when Bob Vylan, the band, stood up and said, death, death to the IDF. And the BBC screened it and then carried on screening their live act for 40 minutes and left it on the iPlayer for a while. They took it down in the end, but all in all, that should never have gone out. What's happened? The head of music has been asked to step back. What does that mean? Lorna Clark is her name. She gets 215 grand a year. Head of music, 215 grand a year. What does she do? Well, carries on claiming her salary because she's not getting fired. Also, we learned that a small number, and I'm quoting from the BBC, a small number of senior executives have also been asked to step back after the shambles of Glastonbury because of their part, their responsibility for that disaster of letting out anti-Semitism onto the BBC. To step back. What does that mean? Do they ever fire anyone? That's what Lisa Nandy is saying. We'll talk about that after the next break. Before we get to that break, let's talk to Betty in London. Hello, Betty.
Hello, Kevin. Yeah, there's a couple of things. Yeah. My niece and nephew were both diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah.
Over 20 years ago.
Yes.
It never even occurred to my sister to claim benefits. They just managed it, and they're both now, one's nearly 30, the other one's 32. They hold down full-time jobs, and they're doing great.
Yeah, well, you know, good for your. That's your sister, is it? Yeah, good. My point is, and I don't want to be unsympathetic to people with ADHD, particularly your sister's kids, grown-up kids as they are now. I'm not trying to be unsympathetic. I just don't understand why. You know, having attention deficiency syndrome means, you know, you get free, you get welfare payments or you get free cars or anything like that. I don't understand it. Why?
No, I don't understand it either. But the other thing that I really that came to mind was, about 30 years ago, I was diagnosed with clinical depression, and I spent 2 6-month periods in a psychiatric hospital, and I was awarded disabled living allowance. When they did away with that, I applied for PIP, and do you know why I was turned down? Because I drove my car to the appointment, and because I could drive, I couldn't have PIP.
The thing is, if you didn't have a car, the irony is, Betty, they'd probably give you one. It's just unbelievable.
Just make it make sense. And incidentally, what's happened to Clash of the Titans?
Oh, Clash of the Titans. You mean, I think that died a death. Because you liked that, did you? Well, I'll see if I can get it back together. Maybe we'll do a special reunion edition for you. How's that?
That'd be great.
All right, Betty. I'm on the case. I'll see what I can do. Really good to talk to you. Thanks for an excellent call. Thank you, Betty in London. There. Let's go to break. When we come back, we'll talk about the BBC. Stay tuned.
I mean, if Angela Rayner becomes Prime Minister of this country, she's obsessed with this Islamophobia law, I'm out. I'm gone.
Yeah, well, you've got plenty of places you can move to.
She is not only thick, she's dangerously thick and massively ideological. And
she's also quite a clever politician, though.
Be.
No, but she's also quite a clever politician, and she's
certainly she's
clever enough to run rings around the entire Labour Party.
Yeah,
she would definitely get in
there.
She's
well savvy. Oh, Liminek.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. After the 9 o'clock news, I'm going to be joined by Lady C. We've got lots of royal stuff to talk about, lots of Meghan stuff to talk about, so stay tuned for the inimitable, redoubtable Lady C on Meghan after the 9 o'clock news. Before we get to that, though, let's talk about the BBC. As I was just saying, Lisa Nandy, the Culture Secretary, is demanding to know why no one has been fired for the Glastonbury debacle. You know, allowing anti-Semitism, you know, death to the idea, onto the BBC screens. Bob Vylan allowed to perform live on the BBC. Was some time before they were taken down from the iPlayer. Complete balls up, and the BBC admit it. Oh, we did that wrong, and with the benefit of hindsight, we should have taken them off there. They've admitted that. No one's got the sack, least of all the Director General, who seems to just stagger from one self-created crisis to the next. The hapless Tim Davie seems to be Teflon Tim, God knows why. But no one gets sacked from the BBC. Why is that? Let's talk to ex-BBC presenter Adrian Mills. Welcome, Adrian.
Thank you very much indeed. I've been sacked by the BBC. Seems to me that if you're a presenter, you do get sacked. But if you're on 200 grand as a senior executive, then you dodge the bullets.
Yeah, you're right about that. Of course, the odd presenter or star does get their marching orders. But this is a sort of different issue, really. Now, what's happened here is that Lorna Clark, she's head of music at the BBC. She gets £215,000 a year. I was thinking, what did she do for that? Head of music. Anyway, nice work if you can get it. Now, she's taken the rap for what happened, the Bob Vylan death to the IDF. She's taken the rap for it. And so we're also informed by the BBC, and I quote, a small number of senior executives. So Lorna Clark, head of music, and a small number of senior executives, because of this absolute disaster, this debacle that unfolded at Glastonbury, you know, this rampant anti-Semitism being allowed to go onto the TV and to stay there. They've all been asked to, and I quote, step back. Now,
what does that mean?
Well, quite. Lisa Nandy is saying, well, why haven't they been asked to step out of the building and not return, as in, why haven't they been sacked? So why has no one got their marching orders for this? And I think most poignantly, why the hell is Tim Davies still there? Apparently, when this happened, he went around saying, I think I can survive this. I think I can survive this. How many more times is that guy going to be allowed to go around going, I think I can survive this? You've had the Gary Lineker saga, Hugh Edwards, now this, you name it.
Jermaine Genius.
Yeah, exactly right, Jermaine Genius, you name it. This guy is in charge of the problem. Has been for... He's hapless. He staggers from one crisis to the next. No suggestion that he's getting fired, nor anyone else. What is it about the BBC that it can't see that someone should take responsibility for what happened at Glasgow?
Well, what's quite extraordinary is if you mentioned there the head of music. Now, the people that work for that department, of which there are many people, hundreds, I would suspect, if not thousands, they have a knowledge of music, of all genres of music. So to actually broadcast live somebody that you know has been risque in the past is quite extraordinary. And I spoke to somebody recently who said, oh, yes, but we don't do time delays. What on earth are you talking about? 2 or 3 of the programmes that I've worked on in the past that have been broadcast live have been broadcast as live, i.e. there's a 10, 15-minute or 30-minute delay. So, for example, when I used to work That's Live, in case we were to libel anybody or we put up the wrong photograph, we were running as live so that we could correct it and then we'd broadcast it. The very fact that these people, this is their speciality, didn't realise that there was a huge risk with broadcasting this gentleman live, I find totally astounding. But as you so rightly say, people don't get sacked at the BBC. They get moved sideways. You know, probably a couple of
step back, Adrian. They step back.
Step back, my friends. We should all step back. I suspect a few of them will turn up on Songs of Praise, you know, as a penance for them. But overall, it is a closed shop. They will put the ring fence around and there's nothing to see here. We've dealt with it.
Yeah, you're right. They mark their own homework. And, Samir Shah, the chairman of the BBC, with indecent haste after this debacle of Bob Villan, announced that we have full confidence in Tim Davie. Well, you said, you said that about Hugh Edwards. You said that about Gary Lineker. You said that about Jermaine Jacobs. What will it take for you, Samir, to lose some of this great confidence you have in this man, Tim Davie? Here's a fact for you, though. This is what is worrying, right? In terms of the BBC, as you say, closing in on itself, not firing anyone, marking its own homework, refusing outside help with their various problems. So over the past 7 years, apparently, the state broadcaster, the BBC, has dealt with 400 serious cases of alleged bullying and sexual harassment. 400. How many people have been fired?
Oh, I would think probably less than 10.
Yeah, it's 8.
Oh, well, there you go.
400 cases, 8 people have been fired in 7 years. So we have a problem here, don't we, Adrian?
Yeah, we do. But what I would say there is, what is the definition of bullying? I mean, because I've worked live television, as you have, as you're doing now, and you've worked in newsrooms. You see bullying in newsrooms. Don't tell me you never did.
I think I've probably done it.
Well, there you go. But there are certain people take it on board. And if you're working in a gallery, I mean, I know somebody that complained to their boss that they were being bullied by the fact that a producer had shouted at them in the middle of a live programme. Now, I'm sorry, but that's the nature of the business that you're in.
I totally accept that, Adrian, but that ratio, that's disproportionate. Yes. 400 cases, 8 people have been fired. Yeah. We're talking about what happened in Glastonbury. Lisa Nandy, who is not sort of full of antipathy for the BBC by any means, she loves the public service broadcaster. Even she is furious. She's saying, why has no one been fired? The BBC cannot be allowed to keep doing this, can it? No. Folding it in on itself, marking its own homework, protecting everyone, and telling the rest of us, those of us who pay for the damn broadcaster, oh, you can get out of this, we'll deal with this.
And the argument that they will put forward as well is that actually we've got some creme de la creme of the television broadcasting world, and they made a mistake on this occasion. We've asked them to, as you so rightly say, step back. But we can't afford to lose them because we pay them a reasonable salary. And you go, a reasonable salary, 200 grand? It's ridiculously expensive. And they'll say, but if they were in the commercial world, they'd be earning a lot more.
No, they wouldn't. That's just a lie.
Go to the commercial world and you'll find that, no, they won't, because the commercial world is crushing in at the moment, lack of advertising, etc., etc. But I have seen in my time working at the BBC some horrendous cases of bullying. And on 2 occasions, one in particular, I actually reported it, where a senior presenter stuck his tongue in the ear of a young junior production assistant late evening. I reported it to the editor. The editor called the presenter in, and in the middle of that meeting, then went to the door and said, can you come in to the young sort of AP assistant? She came in, started crying. She was like 18 years old. And the editor said, tell him what you told me. Well, she didn't have to tell him because he knew what he'd done to her. What happened? 2 weeks later, she's moved on to another programme. The presenter went on to greater things. And that girl who I bumped into a couple of years ago, she said, I'll always remember that. Thank you for standing up for me. She said, but I decided that television wasn't for me. Yet it should have been for her. And it was dealt with appallingly.
I think I've told you before, Adrian, I have a friend of mine who quite a few years ago complained about Hugh Edwards. Now, my friend was, shall we say, way down the pecking order.
Yeah.
Hugh Edwards was turning his attentions to him. He complained to HR. HR said to him, well, Hugh's a very important man. Are you sure you want to proceed with this? That's the BBC for you, isn't it?
Well, that is the problem, because people, it's career limiting. And you think if you raise your head above the parapet, you're the one that's going to get sort of shoved sideways. You're the one who's going to lose your job. And that person will go on and they go, no, nothing to do with me, because certain people feel totally untouchable.
Absolutely right. Adrian, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm glad that you've probably found gainful employment since the BBC fired you. Good to talk, Adrian. Let's get you on again very soon. After the break, it's Lady C on Meghan. You don't want to miss that. Stick around.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Taking your calls in about 20-25 minutes. You know what we're talking about. Should people get a free car from the welfare system if they're constipated, or if they've got tennis elbow, or if they're depressed or suffering from anxiety? Why do you need a car if you're depressed or you're suffering from anxiety? 03444991000. Is Rupert Lowe right? Is it time that we started getting like Donald Trump and started deporting a great many of these people who are here illegally, asylum seekers, whatever the hell they are? We are estimated to have millions of illegal migrants in this country. Is it about time we got rid of them? 03444991000. And will Labour be right if they go down this road to tax the rich, to rinse the rich, to charge people with more than 10 million quid, 2% of their incomes or their wealth, in order to shore up our crashing economy, because we don't seem to be able to make any welfare savings? So is it right to rinse the rich? Won't that just mean more and more millionaires will just leave the country? The exodus of the wealthy. Is that what we want? 03444991000. And also Ellie Reynolds, we had on about the rape gang scandal She says that she thinks the scale of it is even bigger than we thought. So I was shocked to learn last week that Manchester Police alone are investigating 1,000 new suspects based on the allegations of 714 new victims. Now, Ellie says that she thinks that's the tip of the iceberg. She thinks the scale of this is so massive you won't believe it. So even that, she says, is not an accurate reflection of how big this scourge is, and it's still happening. The idea it's not happening is for the birds. It is happening. 0344 499 1000. Let me know what you think. Now, before we get to you, though, it's time now to talk about the royals, specifically Harry and Meghan. And who better to do so than with the excellent royal commentator and author, the brilliant Lady C. Good evening, Lady C.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm very, very well. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Now, I'm glad we got you today because actually I do believe a big story is unfolding over there in Montecito. I've been saying for several weeks now, maybe months, that going forward, the big story about Harry and Meghan will be financial. They're living like billionaires, but at best they've got millionaires' money. And we are hearing today, courtesy of the New York Post over in America, that they are cutting their communications team. They've already let several of their staff go, and the number of people who have left their company since 2020 is now up to 25 departures, some of them not yet publicised. This apparently is because the gruesome twosome Harry and Meghan are desperate to save money. I'm not surprised by this story, that they're in some economic difficulties. Does that ring true with you, Lady C?
Well, Kevin, rather like you, I've been covering this for some considerable time because, you know, aside from the fact that I have to run a life where running a castle, etc. So I know a little bit about money, and I come from a family that used to own department stores. So I have some vague idea of, shall we say, what goes in and comes out. And it was obvious that Harry and Meghan are leading billionaire lifestyles on a millionaire's budget. And I've actually broken down the figures repeatedly in the last, say, 18 months or 2 years. In fact, ever since really they signed with Netflix, because the figures that were bandied around were really always a gross exaggeration, as I said. And it's interesting that page 6, which is, of course, the Post's column, it's very famous. It's actually more famous as page 6 than the Post.
You're right. But it's a good diary column. I mean, it's got a good reputation. Yeah.
Excellent. And what's really interesting is not only has it now come out and said this, but it quantifies the Netflix figure at 20 million, not 120 or 100 million, 20 million. And let's remember also that page 6 has a connection with Ari Emanuel of William Morris Endeavour. So the mere fact that they are throwing cold water on Harry and Meghan's claims is very indicative of the fact that that Ari Emanuel really is not backing her anymore, which is something I think you and I have already discussed in the past.
Indeed.
And so there's that, but also the income. Harry is worth a maximum of maybe 50 million, because even if their Netflix had been worth 20 million, is that profit or is that income? This huge difference right there. And if you do the math, you will know that as in the book that Harry did was really the big earner for them, because the recommended retail price on a book is pegged to I'm sorry, the author's income is pegged to the recommended retail price of the book. And Harry's book Spare Me was always discounted at beginning at 50%.
I think technically, Lady C, it was called Spare, but I think you're talking about yourself. Spare me. We all picked up that book and said, spare me from having to read this. But yes, point taken, point taken.
Yeah, well, but he might realistically have made 20 million from that. Penguin Random House would have lost its shirt, but he'd have made that. So all told, Harry is worth, and let's remember you also have to pay tax. So Harry and Meghan collectively are worth maximum 40 million, 50 million to be over generous. Their outgoings are tremendous. The land tax on the house alone is over $250,000 per annum. They have a very large mortgage. They have massive outgoings, and they have not been earning. And I do not think that they have made 20 million from Netflix, because remember, Netflix gives them a certain budget, but they have to produce out of that budget. It's not profit, it's what they produce out of it. So it's not a surprise. What to me is a surprise isn't that they're in financial trouble, because we've spoken about this for ages.
Yes, we have, yeah.
It is that Page 6 is running with this, especially when you consider the fact that Ari Emanuel has basically washed his hands of Meghan. It shows yet again that Meghan and Harry are really in the at least median stages of total collapse.
I think that's a really interesting. Do you think, Lady C, or put it this way, let me ask you this. Do you share my doubts that, as ever, you know, her sort of online shop that's selling things like jam and apricot spread and dried flowers and cookie mix and now Chateau Meg rosé wine, do you think that is making very much money? Because I don't. What do you think?
Absolutely not. Absolutely. It's first of all, Netflix is the one that's been paying for the, you know, for the consignment.
Right. Yes.
And to make sure that they wouldn't lose money, they have had very small production lines of each and every item.
Yes.
So that it's no accident that Meghan is saying, we're sold out, we're sold out, we're sold out. If you're sold out within 20 minutes or half an hour or an hour, it means you are underproducing, and then they do not refresh. So that tells you right there that Netflix is not backing her substantially, because when you do something like that, you have to have all the products in the warehouses before ready to be launched. So the fact that they sell out very quickly shows that A, Netflix has minimal investment, and B, that Netflix doesn't believe that Meghan is ever going to sell well, because they wouldn't sell out after 20 minutes. They might, if they had a really good run on something, they might sell out after 2 days, or even, let's be generous, 8 hours. But selling out after 20 minutes is...
Yeah. Well, I said this last week, ladies. I just said it just seems to me to be a very, very strange business model to have a kind of online store, but nothing is ever available. As soon as she puts something on sale, about 3 minutes later, she goes, oh, it's all sold out, sorry. Well, that doesn't seem to me to be a very good business model. We worked out, by the way, or we didn't, this is from some other brilliant mathematician, but it's interesting. In order to make $15 million, Meghan would have to sell 2.7 million pot of her jam, or her scam jam, because it's not really jam, by the way. 2.7 million. So that works out at 7,000 jars of jam a day she has to sell. This isn't happening, is it? And it's not going to happen. So there's an idea of just how much money she isn't making. I just don't believe that selling silly little pots of fruit spread and dried flowers and cookie mix is going to make a fortune for anyone. Do you?
It can't make a fortune for them. And her idea that she's going to become a billionaire and she's been spreading the word, it's as realistic as her and Harry having initially said that their contract with Netflix was worth 100 million or 120 million, whatever. You know, they inflate things in the hope that people are going to be dumb enough to believe it, and then the money will follow. But when you're putting up your money, you're not going to be sort of doing it on a wing and a prayer. You're going to look at the facts and figures, and Netflix has done that. But Netflix, of course, is keeping Meghan in the stable, so to speak, because they know that the marriage is in grave difficulties and that both Harry and Meghan are close to collapse. And they want to be there to sort of have the sick bucket underneath her chin.
What you mean, I like that. What you mean is that they are sticking in with Meghan because if the marriage goes wrong, when the marriage goes wrong, they'll get Meghan's story, and that really will make a lot of money, right?
That's right. Well, it will make them a lot of money. It might make her 20 million, but 20 million is nothing. You know, when you live at the level they live at. And Meghan has a billionaire's taste. Yeah. But let me put it this way. For Londoners, Meghan has Belgravia taste on a Ballon budget.
I like that. That's exactly right. So my mother used to say that to me. Your problem is you've got East End pockets and West End ideas, which pretty much sums me up to this day. When you say, Lady C, I mean, I think I know where you're coming from, but try to articulate it. You said you think the marriage is in big trouble. Why?
Well, I understand that Harry's close to collapse and that Meghan is close to collapse, but they're both close to a different sort of collapse. And that the marriage is in big trouble because they're both in big trouble. I mean, they are fully aware of the fact that the walls are closing in. They're under huge financial pressure. They're all of the questions being asked about their conduct. And I'm not going to say a thing about padding or any of that. But all of that is a huge concern to them. And you know, they're worried not only that their secrets will get out, but let's remember, when hunger walks in through the door, love usually flies out of the window. And that's evidently happening with them.
I like that. I like that. I like that phrase. I think that is kind of the problem. What do you think? Do you think there's any chance, because I have my doubts, of there being a repairing of the fractured relationship between Harry and principally his father, the King Charles, and of course William as well? Do you think that family feud, which is very bitter now, do you think it can ever be healed? I have my doubts. What do you think?
Well, I personally do not think that William will ever forgive Harry, nor will Catherine ever forgive Meghan and Harry. And so I think that part of it is a busted flush. And it's much easier for a sibling to surrender a relationship with another sibling than for a parent to surrender a relationship with a child. And my understanding is that the king knows that Harry is extremely disturbed, but he is effectively practicing what in the 12-step program they call loving detachment. And So there is, as long as he's with Meghan, I do not think there's much of a possibility of any rapprochement, because they understand that Harry is addicted to Meghan as well as to whatever else he takes, while Meghan is addicted to publicity, and Meghan is addicted to money. And Meghan will not only will sell, she has sold everybody down the drain to make money. And Harry has willingly gone along with it. So no, I don't think at this stage, and there's no incentive for the royal family to make up with Harry and Meghan, because if they did, they would be opening themselves to the possibility of betrayal yet again. They would not be able to control what spin Harry and or Meghan would put on any encounter. And so they can't have an encounter with them.
Yeah, you can't. The royal family don't trust them. They don't trust Harry. Don't trust Meghan. They don't trust Harry not to reveal details of their private meetings.
Well, no. Shanghai, not only do they not trust him to reveal or to not reveal, they don't trust him or Meghan to adhere to what happened.
Yeah.
Let's remember, Meghan and Harry are great embroiderers, and the royal family has understood time and again that if you let Harry or Meghan into a room, they can then spin it in such a way. They can say, oh, I mean, this is just this is not what would actually happen. But they can say, oh, he punched me, or she slapped me, or they put a banana skin for me to slipper. They can come up with anything.
Yeah,
and they have already come up with ludicrous anything.
They have. You're right. Last question, Lady C. Let me ask you this. The King, King Charles, lovely man, but well known. He's very soft-hearted. I don't think he'll do anything tough to Harry or Meghan. But when William, shall we say, has the reins of power, do you think, as a lot of people think, that he will strip those kids, Archie and Lilibet, of their HRH titles? And more to the point, given the way that Meghan has behaved with her semi-royal title, the Duchess of Sussex, the way she's clearly, shamelessly monetised that, do you think he might take away her title as well?
Well, they say a week is a long time in politics. Well, several months or a year or even 5 years is a very long time in a life. And Harry and Meghan could be divorced in 5 years. If Harry's clever and the marriage is coming to an end, if he gets his titles put into abeyance, Meghan becomes Mrs. Meghan Windsor.
Well, we look forward to that day.
So that's one way forward that would sort of put a spoke in her wheel. But there is very little likelihood of those children swanning around at age 18 being his or her Royal Highness, swanning around with, let's remember, just because the children, according to law on paper, have an entitlement to a certain style, doesn't mean it has to be used. Let's remember that Lady Louise Windsor is actually Her Royal Highness Princess Louise of Edinburgh, and it's not used.
Yeah.
So there are already parallels for a downgrade without going the way of Denmark. And the idea that Harry and Meghan have got their people to float the idea that when the children are 18, they will choose whether they'll be working royals or not. That's rubbish.
Yeah, it is rubbish, isn't it? That's not going to be their choice. I think William will make the choice for them. And Harry's idea that these kids will be able to decide when they reach their 18th birthday is a classic entitlement by the Duke of Sussex, who is a very entitled young man. Well, he's not even that young these days, is he? Lady C, it is a genuine pleasure to talk to you, always, always. That was brilliant. Thank you very much. Come back and see me again soon. That was Lady C, royal commentator and author. What do you think about some of the things she was saying? 03444991000. We'll go to break now. When we come back, your calls, your WhatsApp voice notes, and I'll read some of the texts that you've been kind enough to send in. So all of that still to come. Stay where you are.
It wasn't a surprise to me that Keir Starmer decided to U-turn on the grooming gang scandal. This was a subject which exploded.
The most sickening, disgusting thing that I've seen this government do was the cover-up, and it is a cover-up, I'm sorry, over the grooming gangs, the rape gangs. How dare our Prime Minister turn around and say calls for a national inquiry into a sexual genocide, the most horrific scandal that's ever befallen this country, ever, ever, ever in history.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Taking your calls, taking your messages. I'll read some out in just a little while. What's this one say? This is from Ange. Ange says, I hope it's not Ange Rayner. Might be. No, it's Ange. If we are skint, why doesn't Keir give up his pension tax exemption? It's a good question, but I don't think he's going to do it, Ange. I really don't. Let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Kevin in Leicestershire. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin. How you doing tonight?
All right, mate. What would you like to say?
Great guest, I'll say that for a start. But,
you like Rupert Lowe, don't you? Yeah.
How did you know that? Yeah.
Well, no, I'll tell you why I know it, because I've got a little note saying from you, love Rupert Lowe. I get a little note for on every phone call. I get a little note about what you might want to say. So, why do you love or do you like Rupert Lowe, Kev?
Well, that's not actually why I was calling.
No, I know that, but you might as well tell me. Then you can say what you wanted to say.
Everything he says makes sense. Like, you know, Just tax the rich even more. No. He said, don't want to create another party, creates division. Everything he says, I just agree with him. And I'm gutted about him and Nigel. But, everything's happened. But
yeah. A lot of people are sad that they had to part company, but I just think they did. They both accept it now. It's just one of those things. Anyway, Kev, you wanted to talk about ADHD. What was it that you wanted to say?
Yeah. Well, what it is my son, sort of, I would say, got diagnosed with it.
Yeah.
He's not got it. Right? He was basically in the COVID era. He was they had very strict lines at school and, keeping a distance. And he was a 6-year-old boy, just playful, just got bored in lessons of listening to religious education and stuff like that. He just had a laugh. And I was the same. I was the same at school.
Yeah. Me too.
So... Well, I'm sure you were, and that's probably, again, I like the phrase you use, East End pockets, West End ideas.
Yeah. So what happened with you? They tried to diagnose your boy with ADHD, and they tried to give you a free car. Is that right?
Yeah, this is it, and this is what they do, because they sent him to another school. Right, and he lasted 3/4 of the term at another school, but it was a bit of a distance away. Yeah. And straight away, this liberal cretin, she's like, "Well, you can get this. You can get this car. You can get this, and you'll be able to claim for the fuel." And I'm like, "There's nothing wrong with him." And the headmaster sort of backed her, and so what I'm just answering is, you've been asking quite a lot on your show. Why do you get a car? Well, they push it.
They push it. Did you resist the car, or did you take it?
Yes.
You did. Well done. Well done. What, you resisted it because you didn't think you deserved it?
No, it's because I know there are people out there that deserve that money, but I think it's probably related to my sister. She has got one. Her son's been diagnosed with Asperger's. Nothing wrong with him. She's just playing the system. She's just like, I'm an idiot for working, because at the end of the day, she can sit on her backside for free. We don't get on. But this is what I mean. There's a lot of people out there like that. She's had more disposable income than me and the rest of my family put together, and she's never got enough money. I wouldn't.
Go on, Kev. Sorry.
I was just going to say, because of her, I'm a hard-working HGV driver. I do 50, 60 hours a week, pay me taxes. I couldn't take a penny. No, I didn't take it.
Well, listen, Kevin, thank you very much for listening to my show. It is an honour to have you as a member of the audience. Good for you. How's your son these days? All right?
He's a legend. All right, he does play a bit too much video games. I do get him out.
He's a kid. What do you expect? He's a kid. Of course he plays video games. Kev, listen, well done. And thank you very much for ringing. As I say, my best to you and your son. Thanks a lot, mate. Kevin in Leicestershire. There you go. A decent person, a decent citizen. I don't deserve a car just because you say my kid's got ADHD. I mean, so there you go, 6 years old. Oh, he's got ADHD, he's playing up during the COVID crisis at school. Would you like a new car? I mean, this is just mad, isn't it? Let's play a quick WhatsApp. We've got quite a few WhatsApp voice notes. Let's play Jerry. He wants to talk about benefits.
Hi Kev, do you know, I get sick of listening to this crap every single day. It makes me absolutely sick to my stomach. 1, I suffer from tennis elbow. 2, I've got arthritis in both knees. 3, I suffer from depression, on medication for all of it, and I still go out and work at least 48 hours per week, sometimes as much as 72, and I pay a lot of money in tax and national insurance. What is it with these young malingerers? They drive me crazy.
I think you're right, Jerry, and I think a lot of these people, these scroungers, who manage to get the state to pay for their entire lives, give them free cars, free money, don't ever go to work, well, they're losing out in the end, because if you don't go to work, your life becomes just empty and pointless. You need some purpose in life. Sitting around saying, oh, it's all right, mother government's paying all my bills and I've got a free car, yeah, but it won't make you happy. It will make you very, very unsatisfied. Before we go to break, let's listen to Craig. What's that voice note again on benefits?
Hi, Kevin. Whilst I agree with you, there are people, like people with wheelchairs, who are working, who need a large car. Small car won't take full wheelchair in. I have tried to get mobility. I struggle to walk. Being 6'3", there's no way would I fit inside a small car or the equipment that I need to walk any distance. I have my own car at the moment, and I'm just trying to live my life as I should be.
Yeah, Craig, don't get me wrong. I tell you, look, I'm not saying no one should ever get a car from the welfare system. Disabled people, people like yourself who need it. I mean, by all means, of course. I'm not against welfare or against benefits. I'm against abuse of welfare. Now, people like yourself, people in wheelchairs, of course they deserve a car. But someone who's constipated or who's got a tennis elbow or is a bit depressed or anxious, not so much. That's my point. The people who are abusing the system spoil it for the people who deserve the benefits that as a civilized nation we should certainly hand to the underprivileged and the disabled. So don't get me wrong, I'm not against it in principle. I'm just against people with tennis elbow getting it or food allergies. What's that about? Food intolerance. I'm allergic to nuts. I want a free car. That's just mad, isn't it? Let's go to break. More of your calls when we come back.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Here's a text from Glyn Holford. He says, I'd put money on the fact that Neil Kinnock, whose entire substance is based on living off the state, is worth maybe 7 to 9 million. Well, actually, Glyn, not bad, but I've got one estimate here, £9.5 million. Another estimate is comfortably over £10 million. So, yes, for never working in the private sector, old Neil has done very, very well, hasn't he? So many of these socialists do. So nice to be a socialist and a millionaire, isn't it? Let's listen to Mark on benefits.
It's funny, isn't it? They like to rinse everybody that they possibly can of everything they've possibly got to give to people that don't deserve all. So just give all the money to them, rinse the British public. The thing is, though, the amount of money this lot these socialists rinse off the top, that they milk off the state, because most of them have got multiple homes. Most of them are doing pretty damn well for themselves, including Lord Kinnock. You know, a bunch of bloody hypocrites, Kev.
I agree with you, Mark. They are a bunch of hypocrites, all doing very, very nicely. Thank you. And their only idea is to tax the rich, people who are as rich as them. So, yeah, I mean, probably Neil Kinnock, we were just talking about how much is he worth. He's probably worth 9.89 million, so just under 10 million, so he wouldn't be taxing himself to the tune of 2%. It's usually the way those people roll. But, yeah, I mean, it's all about anybody in the private sector, anybody who's done well, anybody who's run a company. Let's rinse them dry and give it to scroungers. That's the road to ruin, folks. It really is. Let's talk to Stuart in Bath. Hello, Stuart.
Good evening.
Hello.
First-time caller, so go easy on me, please.
All right. Don't worry.
I'm a full-time carer for my disabled wife. She's got a lot of health problems that affects the way she lives and her mobility. She's on the high standard, the highest rate on the living side of PIP, and also the high standard on the enhanced standard of the mobility.
So she's one of these people who get generous amounts of PIP, and she deserves it, yes?
Yeah, she wouldn't have been affected by the new changes if they were coming into play. She would have passed that easily with the points score.
Okay, good.
So I do appreciate there are some people probably on PIP who probably shouldn't have.
There's a lot. There's a lot.
It's very difficult. Going through the process with her is extremely difficult to get the points that you need for the mobility side of things. So I without coming across like I'm trying to patronise anybody, because that's certainly not what I'm doing. You've got two different elements of PIP. You've got the living components, like if you need help with cooking or washing and that stuff, and then you also got the mobility side of things. On the mobility side of things, that wouldn't have been affected at all for anybody who gets that, because it was just the living side of things.
Look, Stuart, your wife. You know, again, I was just trying to stress before the break just now. I'm not against PIP, I suppose, totally. And I'm certainly not against people getting cars if they need it for their mobility, particularly if they're in wheelchairs.
Totally.
I am against people getting a free car if they're anxious, depressed, or they're constipated.
I agree with you there. However, just on our experience with regards to the mobility side of things, you wouldn't just get given a car if you're constipated or a tennis elbow or anything like that. They would have had other serious underlying conditions.
Well, maybe. What about 32,000? More than 32,000 people got cars because they were depressed or anxious, suffering from anxiety. Why would you get a free car just because, or a car on welfare just because you're depressed?
Let me answer this question. So I'm more than happy to go through it with you. No problem.
Well, I don't want to sort of do an application
I do agree with what you're saying, but I'm just trying to explain that the cars are not actually free.
I know about that it comes off your welfare payments. However, why would you, whether or not it comes off your welfare payments, why would you qualify for a free car, if you like? Not quite free, I take your point. Why would you qualify for one of these generous cars when you're just depressed or you're suffering from anxiety? Why? What's the answer to that question, Stuart?
I'm trying to answer, but you keep saying. So basically, like I was trying to say just now, you would have certain underlying conditions which will allow you to score enough points on the mobility.
Well, we need to change the system then, don't we? Well, we need to make those points harder to get then, don't we? Because we shouldn't be giving 32,000 brand new cars to people because they're depressed or they're suffering from anxiety. That's ridiculous. I'll tell you how many cars. Oh, hang on, Stuart. Hang on. Hold on. Let me talk. I'll tell you how many cars we should be giving to people who are depressed or suffering from anxiety. 0. None.
I agree with you. Totally agree with you. just for those conditions. But however, what I'm trying to say is to get enough points, they wouldn't have just...
Well, change the point system then. Change the point system. We've got a rubbish point system. We're giving too many. We gave away 589,000 cars last year. That is madness.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So never mind your point system. Your point system may well be the problem.
I'm trying to explain to you and your listeners that there would be more than just a tennis elbow.
No, you say. I say. You can't tell me that. I don't agree with you. I don't know. Why have I got these statistics?
I just know how the system works.
No, you're trying to justify this madness, and I'm not having it. I'm not having it. This system is crazy. It's crazy. 589,000 cars. We're giving cars to people because they're depressed or anxious. And you're trying to say, oh, no, you don't understand the point system. It really, really is justified. You think it's justified to give away 589,000 cars? Don't you think that with a system like that, perhaps we should change the point system?
Maybe you're right.
Well, not maybe, Stuart. Definitely. Don't come on this show trying to justify this insanity.
You're taking it that way.
You're trying to say, oh, you don't understand. It's actually a very, very good system. It's a point system. It's a rubbish system.
It's a good system. I never once you're putting words into my mouth, and I never once said that. I'm just trying to explain to you.
You're saying. Wait a second. No, wait a second. Stop talking when I'm talking. Can you look? Let me talk. You're saying that if anybody got a car for constipation or for tennis elbow, there must have been other reasons they got the car. How do you know?
Can I answer?
Yeah, go on.
Right, thank you. Basically, the point system, you have to score. Like for example...
answer that question. Answer my question. No, you're not answering my question, are you?
You're not letting me answer again.
You're not answering... No, look, Stuart, if you're going to talk when I talk, I'm just going to put the phone down, all right? You're not answering my question. You don't know. You're saying, oh, well, people wouldn't get a car for constipation or tennis elbow. I know that. You don't know that, do you? You have no idea. You don't know that. You can't be claiming this. What are you, like the world expert?
You're talking over me now, aren't you?
Huh? Yeah, you are. I'll tell you why, Stuart. I'll tell you why. It's because it's my show. Right, all right, shut up, get off. Get rid of him.
It wasn't a surprise to me that Keir Starmer decided to U-turn on the grooming gang scandal. This was a subject which exploded.
The most sickening, disgusting thing that I've seen this government do was the cover-up, and it is a cover-up, I'm sorry, over the grooming gangs, the rape gangs. How dare our Prime Minister turn around and say calls for a national inquiry into a sexual genocide, the most horrific scandal that's ever befallen this country, ever in history. I mean, if Angela...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Anyone else want to give me a ring and tell me what a great idea it is that we give away 589,000 free cars on our welfare system? Anyone else want to give me a call about the points system? Because if, you know, the point system, therefore, is wrong. 589,000 cars in 1 year on welfare. Do me a favour. Also, 1 in 5 new cars sold in this country are bought by the motability scheme. So a fifth of all cars are bought by the motability scheme for our welfare system. Anyone else want to come on and tell me that's a good system? Oh, you don't understand the points. Sod the points. Get rid of the points. We need to make this sensible as opposed to insane. Here's Wayne on the benefit system.
This story about PIP for people with constipation, etc., is disingenuous. I have a disabled wife. You cannot just phone up, say you've got constipation or some silly illness like that, and get PIP. Now, to get daily living is bad enough as it is, even with your GP letters, your NHS consultant letters. When people have got illnesses that are documented, like my wife, who has one particular arm that works, that's it, she still has to then prove to the assessors how far she can move that arm and what she can do with it. It's demeaning, it's demoralising, and the whole point about this rebellion against the PIP changes is the fact that they wanted to make the point scoring system harder, which would have seen people who have actual disabled needs falling through the net.
Well, Wayne, I think we should make the point system a hell of a lot harder, because we shouldn't be giving away 589,000 cars in a single year. How many more times have I got to say this? People go, no, it's a very good system. No, it's not. Your point system, very difficult. Get a different point system. God's sake. Let's speak to John in Hampshire. You get PIP, do you, John?
Yeah, I do.
Good. And?
Well, and recently the government's changed the motability scheme, which I used to get road tax paid on my car. And my car's a second-hand car, re-registered as a mobility car.
Yeah.
And funny enough, when it was originally purchased, it was a mobility car.
Right.
So it's gone through two sets of hands.
Right.
I've got Parkinson's.
Okay.
And I can't walk very well, but with the car, I can get around. But recently, the government has decided that I just turned 70, and now I've got to go through a whole long list of new criteria so that I can get my driving licence back.
Well, I don't want to seem cruel, John, but don't you think that it should be difficult to get free cars and things like that on welfare?
Oh, sure.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
I hated it.
And it sounds to me, John, it sounds to me as if you've got a genuine mobility problem. So as I say, I'll keep trying to stress this. You know, people in wheelchairs, people like yourself who can't get around, you know, by all means. But depression, anxiety, tennis elbow, do you see what I'm saying? These are not reasons to give people free cars, are they?
No, they're absolutely not.
No, that's all I'm saying.
Go to any disabled parking space.
Yeah.
And you'll see them all Range Rovers and God knows what else.
Yeah, the people who managed to get themselves those signs, the passes.
Mine's a £1,200 car, falling to bits.
Well, you should get a new one, John. I think you should reapply. I mean,
can't afford it.
Well, no, I think if you have a word with the government or the welfare people, they'll give you a free car. It's easy enough to get. Tell you what, mate, you got Parkinson's, but why don't you get in touch with them, tell them you got tennis elbow, then they'll give you a free car. How about that?
I don't think I have as much gall.
Honestly, John, it might be worth a try. It might be worth a try. As I say, don't get me wrong. I'm not against people getting free cars that help them get around, somebody like yourself. But I am kind of against giving cars to people who are depressed or with anxiety or tennis elbow or constipation. These are not reasons to give people new cars. But I wish you all the best, John, and thank you for an excellent call. Look after yourself. Thank you. John in Hampshire. Let's quickly pay Daz on ADHD.
Evening, Kev. When I went to school, which was 78 to 83, 1,500 kids at our school, comprehensive. I didn't know anybody with ADHD, but then we had the cane. So, I don't know, perhaps that had something to do with it.
Yeah, ADHD is one of those, well, you know, I'm sure it's something that, you know, can be a real problem for a lot of people. So let's be fair on that. But I don't think ADHD is a reason to get a free car, do you? Or, I mean, people say, no, it's not free. They take it off your welfare payments, you know, and it's kind of, well, why are you getting welfare payments because you're depressed or suffering from anxiety anyway? You know, I mean, this shouldn't be, you know, the government can't step in and look after everybody for everything adverse thing that happens to everyone. Oh, I'm depressed. Oh, it's free car. It's free payments, you know. I mean, this is why we're going down the gurgler, because we've got a £300 billion welfare bill, and we're giving free cars, we're buying 1 in every 5 new cars and giving them to people with constipation or tennis elbow. It's mad. Let's talk to Herbie in Harrow. Hi, Herbie.
Good evening, Kevin. Will you watch your blood pressure, mate? Otherwise you'll be bursting.
Am I right, though, Herbie? You know, all these people say, oh, well, you don't understand the point system and, you know, it's very difficult to qualify for this. You shouldn't be qualifying for a free car at all if you're depressed or you've got anxiety, should you?
No, Kevin, the system's been bad for so many years, it's untrue. How are these people getting away with it? It's just, it just don't make sense to me any longer. You know, I've been assessed for a couple of things, and you know, I didn't get through it. You know, I weren't really bothered, but I was told to go because of what I had, and you know, I accepted it. You know, I didn't need it, didn't want it. But you know, there's a lot of people that are putting the right ringer on some of these things. Some of the claimants they're going through. When you see people in wheelchairs standing up all of a sudden when somebody scored a goal. Yeah, it all goes on, doesn't it? You know,
that's right, yeah. They're claiming benefits and then you see them taking part in the marathon. We've seen that many times, yeah.
Yeah, you know, the system, the whole country, the whole bloody country, it's gone balmy.
I'll tell you what, Herbie. This is what sort of worries me. And you know, I know a lot of people. You know, I'm not against benefit or welfare.
No.
But when we start discussing these issues, the phones light up, the switchboard lights up, and it's full of people saying, well, you know, they told me I could have a free car, but I didn't quite qualify, and didn't get enough points. But if I do that, I'll get one next week. And my neighbour got one, and all that. Nobody sort of accepts that they shouldn't have these cars at all. We are, as a nation, we've become addicted to welfare.
Yeah, but who's giving them permission to do this, though, Kevin? Who's giving
the government? You know, yeah. I mean,
who's giving them the money? Yeah. Who's giving them the money to pay for these cars that we're paying for, I suppose, one way or the other?
Well, it's the Work and Pensions Department that gave Motability £600 million last year.
Oh well.
In other words, Herbie, you and me, that's who's paying for these cars.
Exactly, Kevin. This is the whole issue. All this, people don't realise, all this money that is being spent on these departments does not come from their pocket, their back pocket. It comes from yours and mine.
Yeah.
And it will never stop coming from yours and mine at all.
Yeah, well, those of us who sort of work hard and do what we can to get by on our own, we end up funding everybody else who doesn't want to go out and work. So that seems to me to be the problem. The problem is we have a massive benefits welfare problem, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse, and God knows what we can do about it. Herbie, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you, mate. Herbie in Harrow. Guess who's in the studio? It's Petri Hoskin. How are you?
I'm very well, actually. Rested after my weekend.
Oh, that's good. That's
it was nice, yeah.
I'm never rested after my weekends. they destroy me every
weekend.
They? I get all excited on Friday. By Sunday night, I'm dying. I must stop spending the entire weekend drinking heavily. That might help.
That might be a clue there. We're going to head off to Texas and catch up with the latest on this horrendous disaster. They're now considering that they may not find the other 41 people. 91 people dead now, confirmed. They're not sure they're going to find the other 41 alive. And then at midnight, I want to ask, what kind of prisons should we have in this country? Because there's a huge issue with prisons at the moment, with drugs, etc., etc. But
ones that are like difficult to escape from, that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, except that we've got the highest reoffending rate in the world.
Let
that sink in. 78% after 9 years.
Rehabilitation now is a luxury that we don't seem to afford. We don't seem to bother to afford.
We should do it, right? I mean, that's what I'm going to ask.
Might help, yeah.
What kind of prisons do we want?
Our prisons have become warehouses. We just